that 1 year mark. Getting that 1 year mark of the pandemic. So, you know what I mean? Things
Crazy.
Year flies. Shows you time flies.
Literally, it was like a year ago now when was like our last normal week.
Yeah.
Like a year ago now was the last time like it
I
was
feel like I don't even remember what that feels like.
no, it's crazy. So you know it's crazy to look at it in hindsight and see where we are now. But you know still blessings. Great to be here. You know we're still here. So it's about.
That's what we're discussing today. What are we talking about?
I think as men, you know, we've touched on a lot of topics, but I think one that people want to know about is relationships. You know, where do we all stand? What was our path? Where are we going? So I think it's time to just talk. You know,
Talk that real shit?
talk. Yeah, man.
I feel you. I
Talk
feel
the
you.
talk. So I'll start it off. I'll say, like, depending on where each one of us are in our lives, have you all taken in like real accountability for past relationships that you're no longer in, and what you may have done that may have allowed them to work, not work, but more so not work?
I think before we even get to the accountability, it's about have we even acknowledged, because I think that's somewhere where as men we can fail and we don't even acknowledge that we were wrong in certain areas.
That's the whole point of accountability. I can speak to it and I can say, at that time, no, I didn't take accountability. At that time, all I was focused on was my hurt coming out of a relationship.
Yeah.
And for me, it was just, you know what, like I need to get myself out of this funk. I need to get myself out of this feeling of pain and hurt, and it led me into savage mode, for the lack of better terms, and carrying on with a lot of boy tendencies.
Yeah. So I asked that to say, because a lot of us fall into the notion of deny. So even though a relationship doesn't work, you take it to the grave. But for the ones that didn't, were you able to go back and be like, you know what? Yes, you caught me, or yes, I did this.
No.
No. Mark?
No.
I mean,
let's
did I do it then, or have I done it to like this point now?
Have you done it to this point? To this day, have you rectified and cleared up any sort of things that may have?
In two scenarios. No.
I'm not saying throw all your clothes in the closet.
But I can vividly say in two scenarios, I did, in retrospect, realize how much I was the cause for what happened. And it was more brought to my attention when somebody else was having a mutual friend of both me and the person in the relationship. We're having a conversation with us, with me, and we're pretty much just saying like, okay, how would you feel if this? How would you feel if this? How would you feel if this? And like a lot of my responses were like, I wouldn't be okay with it, whatever. And then it was like, that's how you made her feel. And it wasn't until that point where I was kind of like, no, that's not how she was feeling. That's not what it came off to me. She didn't tell me she was feeling like this. But then if it was like, damn, that's exactly what it was. And as a result, I did reach out and I did take accountability for it. However,
If you took accountability, why is there a however?
no, 100%. I didn't take full accountability in the sense that I took the accountability, but at the same time, I was kind of like, but it was because of what you had done.
Okay.
And that's like I said, it wasn't what it should have been. But that's what I'm talking about. Back then, I didn't do it the right way.
I understand that.
I didn't do it the right way. I didn't come with the full accountability. I came with I did this, but you're to blame for the reason why I did this. Because for what it should have been was, I made this mistake under my own, I made my choice. Regardless of what was going on, I could have handled it this way. And because I handled it this way, I should have that's where I should have stopped. Like you said, there should have been no however. And I see how the however didn't help that relationship end as smoothly as it could have.
Yes.
So in my attempt, after that, I was kind of like, okay, I'm not doing this again. But then I had to realize that also wasn't the right approach. So the second time that I did it was very much different. And I did all cards on the table, held nothing back. There was no buts. There was no your fault. And I I had to learn that, yo, as men, sometimes we have to lay in it. Because we have a tendency to put women through dirt and not be able to take it back. And honestly, unfortunately, I learned that you have to be able to lay in your L.
That's hard.
And it's one of the hardest things.
But what type of L what type of L are you talking about?
See, the thing is, to retort to that, I don't know about the whole you have to lay in it, because sometimes when you do that, you can't, in any type of situation, bad or good, you cannot wallow and stay in that situation.
When I say, hold on.
I know, but let me finish. You cannot. Okay, go ahead.
When I say lay in, I mean like, you have to hug it. Like, because sometimes as men, like, we do
Most
something
definitely,
wrong.
most
we
definitely.
do something wrong.
But just saying you have to hug it, that's not hugging it.
We have to take the. So, for example, let's say you committed infidelity, right? And you're caught. And
Let's stop right there. Let's get real for a second. Let's get real for a second. We've all cheated. Can we say that?
at some point in time,
Yeah.
Okay, so let's not go with the let's say
No hypotheticals on that one.
There's no hypotheticals. We've all cheated.
in a situation where you cheated and you were caught or whatever, very often it's, oh, you did this, why'd you go to the phone, why'd you do this, we can pull any excuse out of the book.
Okay.
And then we expect, or we are hopeful that she's going to, at some point or something, hold on, cling, and not leave, not whatever. We're hopeful of that. Knowing that if the scenario was the opposite, more often than not, we are not giving as much leeway as we expect back.
We're talking about men and women.
Yes.
See, I feel like if
But I'll be honest, y'all. Honestly, some of the things that I've seen mans put through, their woman may have put them through a quarter of it, and he's done. Like, he's out, down, bad. And it, yo,
You
come
can't
on.
still-
See,
But I feel like for
It's like,
me,
yo.
if I think about it, like if I'm cheating in a relationship, like to be honest with you, like I'm probably done because right off jump, I feel like right off jump,
You get caught.
I'm not a cheater kind of guy.
Okay.
Like I feel like
If it happens to you, sorry.
if I'm into you, I'm into you.
Mhm.
So now when it comes, Rob's talking about the end point, and it's like, oh, I gotta hug the L. Like I'm not hugging that L because I've told you throughout the whole process, like, you know what, this is my expectations. I'm gonna give you 100. Like I'm gonna give you 100 of me right at the beginning. And if I have to keep repeating myself, and I don't see you making changes, then for me it's like
You're already mentally checked out.
I'm checked out. And if I'm that's when I feel like that's when I'm doing my dirt.
Let's not focus on that. I really want us to focus on ourselves and the mistakes that we've made in terms of growing into being a formidable partner for a relationship, for a life partnership. And instead of focusing on the things that made us react or focusing on the situations that we weren't our best character, I want us to focus on the character itself.
Okay. So I have an example.
Go ahead.
I've past relationships. I remember doing wrong and having it affect me so much after the fact of realizing that like I was not faithful, and messaging like moms and messaging like pops and messaging uncle, because legit I realized that by me doing those things, it wasn't just affecting me, because I built deep relationships with other people, and once I did that cut off a lot of good, like genuine people who had my best interest at hand just because I was in said relationship. And that one hit me because I was like, I didn't realize the effect on everything else it would have had. And I was like, damn. So I remember just shooting a message and saying, hey, you know what I mean, for whatever reason, X, Y, and Z, me and so aren't together, but I want to let you know that like the last however many years was not, all of that wasn't a fake, and like, you know what I mean? We built real relationships off of that. So that one hit me a bit different, but because I knew the real people who, like, you know what I mean, looked out for me based on me being in that relationship. So yeah, it was just, I had to go back and take that L and just say, to this day, is one of those type of things where I'll never like, oh well, you know, this and this was wrong. No. I know what I did there. You know what I mean? So
And I think even just to build off that, I mean, for me, I've taken the L on not being vocal about my expectations, and then you stay in something and it's clearly it's not working, but because I think this is whole notion of you want to be looked at as a failure, or you stay in something past its expiry date, and then ultimately, like, because of those actions, and you're not forthright, you're not truthful, you're not honest with yourself and with others around you, then you, to a certain extent, you do have to hug an L, because you committed an act of indiscretion, and we all know it's us that kind of looks,
Is it really hugging an L if we go back out there and do the same shit? Well,
That's a form of it.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you have to understand,
Like,
in a certain situation, depending on who it is that you may have hurt or what bridge you may have burned, that could be a relationship that you may not realize until after was incredibly valuable to you, and that's the L in itself, that you'll never be able to have this person, this relationship back, because the fact of the matter is, in any relationship, I'm pretty sure we can all say there's certain relationships, even if we weren't going to be with these people romantically, there are certain relationships that we really burned, and it's like, that hurt me because I know this person was a great friend, regardless of romance or whatever, or was a great partner, and I did lose that, or whatever the case is.
100%.
So I think that sometimes people, in a situation like that, you're going to do one of two things. You're going to go right back out until you have to learn the lesson harder, and then you'll stop, or you're going to learn your lesson, take it, and say, you know what, I'm going to at least try to change.
what's the lesson that you're trying to learn?
not to do it again.
Is it?
Or not to do it that way. We come up with a million
I mean,
different
it's
scenarios.
not the lesson.
I mean, the lesson should be treat people as you want to be treated, because at the
That's not
end.
the lesson either.
So what is the lesson?
What's the lesson?
What are we trying to do in this whole aspect of things?
Be better.
So is that not the lesson?
To be better.
From a macro perspective.
Yeah,
I think
that's a whole big
No,
whole big balloon of things.
But the lesson is to progress. It's not
Yeah.
just about, so I don't get caught again, or I don't. Well, the lesson is for me to go from being this type of person to being that type of person.
Yeah.
I want to be that type of person.
Exactly. But you have to, in order to be that type of person, usually, if you've been this type of person for so long, you do this, you act like this is who you are, it has to take something dramatic.
I'll tell you a story. Go ahead.
ahead.
I'll tell you a story, because I see what you guys are saying, but there's another end to it, and that other end to it is the collective of our brotherhood and how black men are looked at. Black
Okay.
men are looked at as cheaters. Black men are looked at as this, and black men are looked at as that.
Black men don't cheat.
Says who?
Black men don't cheat.
Nigga, we cheat. Nigga, we cheat.
You want, next episode, I'm on your shirt. And
This is what I don't understand. I feel like there's way too much of a narrative. There's way too much of that narrative out there, because it's like,
I'll tell you a story.
Kyle, there's
Kyle,
that narrative out there.
It's not a narrative, my friend. It's not a narrative, my friend.
What
It's not a narrative. It's not
what
a
race
narrative.
of man doesn't cheat?
Okay, but that's very true. That's very true. I'm not gonna go with the whole black man don't cheat. It's all men.
I'm not going with that narrative.
Say all men cheat.
Why are we singled out?
Because I'm taking accountability for the things that I've done.
Okay.
Tell us the story.
That's the story.
Story time.
No story time. Oh, Leo. Okay, so it's dating a girl. I've always been a one woman type of guy. Dating a girl for about 3-4 years, and it was a rough breakup. It was a rough breakup, and I lost a lot of friends to that breakup, and I lost a lot of people to that breakup. And during that time, we're young, we're growing, we're impressionable, we're naive, we're learning about ourselves, and we're learning about the world. I took it rough. I didn't take it the best. I began to distance myself from people, friends, family altogether, and I built this cocoon for myself. And because of that, I became less, what's the word I'm looking for? Personable.
Yeah.
Emotions weren't something that I just grasped onto. It was more logic. And because of that, going forward, now I'm not an emotional person, I am a logical thinker. Or let's just scratch that. Let's just say going forward now, my emotions aren't into things. So now I'm entering relationships without emotions.
Tin Man.
Different relationships without emotions. And now, because of that hurt that I've experienced, I am chasing something. I'm chasing a feeling. I'm chasing to be loved. I'm chasing attention. I am chasing being wanted. Everything that goes into that.
So then our emotions left out.
Emotions are left out.
But you're chasing an emotion.
Exactly. Do you see how complex that is? And a lot of us coming out of relationships develop these habits where we become emotionless, but we're still chasing emotion. This whole narrative of being a savage, that's what it is. You're chasing emotions, but you are emotionless. We go through these periods where we're dicking down everything. You want to dick down everything. Oh, her right there, I'm catching that. Oh, her right there, I'm catching that. We're not taking in the soul ties that we're creating. We're not taking in that you're becoming less of who you are. Because you're taking on so many different identities now.
You're giving it away to other parts that aren't really truly you.
Exactly. And I didn't realize how much that was fucking me up.
Yeah.
Because now when you actually want to get into a relationship, and now when you actually feel like, oh shit, now when you like someone, it's hard to come up with those emotions.
Yeah.
It's hard to express how you like someone. It's hard to, because you're used to these here today, gone tomorrow relationships. And now you're creating a culture of this emotionless men walking around. And as much as you're hurting yourself, do we even stop to think of the bodies that we're creating along the way? Do we stop to think about the broken women that we're creating along the way? We started this broken, and now we're in turn breaking other people. This is what I want to frame this conversation about. This is what I really wanted to talk about. This is what I am struggling with. Because even now, because I'm in my old age and I want to settle down, and I can barely express myself.
I think for myself, I can say that that's something I experienced a little bit. I was probably a lot younger than you were in your scenario, but it was the first time that I had felt that true heartbreak and somebody had cheated on me. I was an older girl, like a couple years older, and it was one of those things that it left a scar on me. It was one of those things where I was kind of like, I can't be vulnerable. I can't be this level of vulnerable, or I have to walk into a situation feeling like, you know what, you might get me, so I gotta get you first. Just in case. And you know what? No. Keeping it real.
No, I know.
Keeping it real, and it's like
That's real shit.
it's literally just the feeling of wanting to not feel like. Just
that
in
feeling
case,
again. You don't wanna
just in
experience that
case,
feeling again.
I can always sit in this and say, well, at least I got one. You might have done what you did, but at least I did mine too. And it's not a healthy way to deal with things, because
Exactly.
that's how, when I came out of it looking at it like that, I realized like off rip, I'm doing damage to her, I'm doing damage to me. And then I'm in this scenario now where I'm on edge all the time. Because if there's something that I did maybe around the time when I did cheat, or I did, take the one before I could get God, anytime I see any sort of behavior, I'm on my toes. And I'm being paranoid of her, and she might not even be doing anything this entire time.
So your own subconscious.
And
because we're
that,
over here
my
doing-
subconscious has ruined relationships because it's made me insecure. And I think that one thing with men is we don't like to talk about, we don't first acknowledge our insecurities.
Yeah.
I had to acknowledge that there are certain things that I was insecure about, whether it be in dating, whether it be in friendships, whether it be in society. Like, certain things I had to understand, like, this is a touchy topic for me. And instead of hiding from it and making it seem like this and that, acknowledge it. And growing up, until I was maybe like, after I was in like grade 10, I became like the shortest of my friends for the most part. You know what I mean? And at first in high school, it was something that to me was I was insecure about it.
Yeah.
And it was like, eventually I had to get to the point where I had to learn myself, be confident of the things about me that did make me stand out. And I have to leave that, and it became a mentality of, honestly, as long as the woman that I favor is shorter than me, I don't care. So things like that, when we can start to acknowledge the insecurities, it helps us to be better partners. Because I'll be honest, when I was insecure, when I was family, like I said, I'm doing stuff just in case you do stuff. And it's like, sometimes you push buttons even because it's like you're so insecure and you almost want a reason to not feel bad about what you've done, so you push buttons to get a reaction. So it's like, okay, I'm happy I did this now because you're moving like this, and it's like, it's real.
I mean, I can agree with that point because, I mean, going from like elementary school, everyone, you know, high school, everyone's talking about, you know, what girl likes who, and I feel like I was growing up and I was like the skinny, nerdy kid, and like, you know, I wasn't getting no play. Like, I feel like I was be like, you know, girls would be like, you like Mark? Nope. Like, I remember that distinctly in computer class one time, and I'm like, yo, this feeling really sucks.
Yeah.
And then, you know, going through high school, and you know, you start to mature and you start to realize. But in my head, it's like, I'm never gonna feel not wanted ever again. So I'm gonna be this person where, you know what, girls are showing me attention now, women are showing me attention. You know, I want to feel wanted. So that really affected, you know, how I related to women. And then on top of that, you know, just when I'm entering, you know, the dating world, you know, my first girlfriend cheats on me. And I feel like for me, that was really messed me up, because after that, it was just like, you're getting attention. I'm never in my life gonna have that feeling happen to me. And I started learning to, you know, toxic behaviors. You're taking control of the situation. You're saying, you know what, I'm gonna have bunches of women. That way, if you do this to me, you know what, I'm in my safety net and I'm good.
Can I ask that? Have we all been, has each one of us been cheated on at some point then?
Yeah.
Honestly, there's one time I know about, but honestly, there's another time that I feel like, honestly,
Nah, nigga, she was cheating.
exactly. So like, I never had proof, but it was one of those where it was like,
Okay.
and it's like, so yeah, we've been there.
Okay.
I don't want to lose your point.
Yeah.
I mean, so just being that aspect, and you know what, I can take accountability that, you know, it made me toxic to a lot of women. And it's not, you know, it's not something that I take pride in. It's not something that, you know, I can look back now and say, you know what, there was a lot of women that really thought you were something, that really thought you were special. And, you know, maybe because you weren't sure where you were going, or you weren't sure who you were, or you weren't stable in yourself, and you hadn't rectified that. Because I always knew you were on the nonsense. Like, me being me on the nonsense, but I always knew that I wanted to settle down. I wanted to trust one woman completely. But, you know, that mentality for a long time was getting in the way of that. And it's, you know, took a lot of work to get over it. But I think when you prioritize that one, instead of looking for all those pieces in multiple people, and that satisfaction, that validation in multiple people, like that one, it makes that relationship much more progressive.
I think great point, awesome point, but I think ultimately, before we even think about that, I think we need to get ourselves right. Because just as you were saying, you don't want to go into these, you don't want to find one and still have your toxic behaviors.
Exactly.
Because that's the worst, where you have this perfect person, and because you're still in your toxic stages, you don't know how to manage the relationship. And a lot of us fall into these situations. By myself, I fell into that situation where every relationship I was in, I felt like I always had to have the upper hand.
Yeah.
And if I didn't have the upper hand, I felt weak. And at that time, if I felt like I didn't have the upper hand, I would start a fight. Toxic behaviors, go out and do something wild out so that, you know, she can come crawling back and crying back to you. And these are the things that I had to say, yo, like, how do I get over this? How do I get out of this?
So to your point, and let's go around the table. Let's identify maybe toxic things that we did in relationships to spark the fire.
Honestly,
You know what I mean? Like, because for anybody listening, there's a lot of, you know, there's young boys, there's people who are always trying to, you know, let's identify.
No, honestly, I used to be very passive aggressive.
You're one of those guys, eh?
Keep it a buck. I used to be passive aggressive, and like, you know, you put like, I would always hide things behind the guise of lyrics. And like, I would say certain things maybe on social media or whatever, and like just whatever, and I know that I could hide behind, okay, it's just lyrics, whatever, I'm listening to music, but at the same time, somebody's gonna be triggered by it. And as they're triggered by it, they're gonna have to bring it to me because I didn't want to bring it to them. You know what I mean? And that was something that I realized because I didn't like confrontation. I didn't like to be the bad guy. I was running from being the bad guy because I've been in situations where I was the bad guy and it doesn't feel good. And I was like, I don't want to be the bad guy by any cost. But sometimes you end up doing things to be the bad guy to not be the bad guy.
Yeah.
So I'm being passive aggressive. I'm doing things that I know are going to make her upset so that she can bring up an issue. And then now I look like, oh, I'm on the defense. You're the bad guy. And that's something that I had to learn. Like, it was very wrong. And I had to apologize. I had to take accountability. And that's something that I did do. And that is a behavior I can say once I acknowledged it, I completely stayed away from. So future relationships after that, I was very, very upfront about things, about my expectations if I felt away. And sometimes that would cause, obviously, confrontation. But I learned that it's better to have that confrontation than the confrontation I was having. Because that confrontation is open, it's honest, it's communication, and we can fix it rather than it coming to be an issue. So that's something that I can say was one of my biggest issues, and I did work towards getting that out of my system.
I mean, I'll say I felt like there's two things. I felt like one of my toxic ones is not communicating, especially in terms of my own happiness. Like, I would tend to shut down, and then I'm like, all right, whatever. You know, I'll say I'm good myself to death. You know, and just be like, okay, I'm not dealing with this. I'm not dealing with this. And then, you know, when you don't deal with it, it lashes out in other ways. So that was definitely one of my toxic behaviors. I didn't want to deal with anything. I didn't want to talk about it. You know what? I'm good. And then I think the other thing was probably, you know, I'll go ghost. Like, I'll disappear. And I'm really, like, I've really tried to work hard at that because, you know, it's not a nice feeling, and, you know, it's probably best when you're upfront and honest. And in the past, I'd go ghost because I'm like, I'm not dealing with this. I got, you know, a roster that's going to give me the attention I want. So, who are you? So, and then thinking about it, it's like you're using everything you've accumulated for yourself. Everything, you know, because I do believe it is, you know, it's a little bit difficult to find, you know, a man that's focused, a man that has something. And I felt like I had all those things in myself, but I was using it to leverage my position. I was using it to leverage myself and saying, so plenty of women want that package. So I'll go.
What are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do? And I feel like, you know,
I'm telling you.
I really think that, you know, I can look back and I'm like, that's a real ignorant behavior. And it's something.
Hearing it now, it's like,
Yeah.
yo, that is.
So
That was me, yeah.
I think that was really the toxic things for me. Now I recognize it. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna stop that, and I need to communicate, and I need to, when I'm feeling away, not go ghost, and when I'm feeling away, you know, not thinking that, you know, this person out here is gonna give me the attention that I want because you can't give it to me in this moment. I think I'm deeply, you know, apologetic about it too, because I know it's affected, you know, the women I've dealt with in the past a lot.
Off the top, I know I got 3, so very similar to Mark. I'm the guy where I was not having the conversation. Like, once the conversation was done, the conversation's done. And if you want to continue, then I'm just gonna dip. And that's why I've always been one of the people who are like, I need to always have a vehicle. I need to have a vehicle because if I don't want to be somewhere, I don't need to be there. You know what I mean? So that was one thing I knew, and it was the worst because it would be like the peak of the argument.
And it's alright, I'm out.
And I'm like, all right, if we're not off this, I'm gonna just dip. Like, you know what I mean?
Up for this whole birthday party.
You know? So, yo, that was it. Another thing was communication. Like, if we're in the whip and we're talking and the conversation's done, I'm just turning up the radio. Like, we're not like. I'm telling you,
It's like if we're not talking about what I like. It's like when the convo's done. All right, bet. Nothing. Nothing. Don't chat. Period. Don't say nothing. Yeah.
I don't have to turn. I have to use my steering wheel, but I'm just like, we're not. And then she's turning it down, and I'm turning it, and it's just like,
I love this song.
You know what I mean? Yo. That, and I think my third one was just always very similar. Like I'd always be one of those dudes. I was at a backup. I always had a backup, and like, it just, it's honestly like the time consuming. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of just unfocused, and I can't even front. Once I stopped doing that, my life got so focused because I stopped running in every direction. My phone wasn't always down. I wasn't always like,
We're gonna
oh,
go into
shit.
that. Let's go into that.
You know what I mean? Like, so, like, just those little habits of secrecy. I was always like a double agent. Like, I feel like always, you know what I mean? So every room I walked in, I was a different person, and I hated that feeling. I hated it. So, yeah, man.
For me, I was a master manipulator. Like the nigga from the Tyler Perry movies.
Oh.
Curse you out in the morning and run your bathwater, cook you dinner at nighttime. Yeah, that was me.
That's crazy.
And I didn't realize, like, yo, like, you're not only someone's mental state, like, that's big. That's big.
Yeah.
To mess with someone else's mental state, like,
And people only do it because your own mental state is messed up.
Yeah.
exactly. Of course, you don't want to take the accountability and say that, but of course. And yeah, that was definitely one of the biggest ones for me. The manipulation, manipulating females and getting my way at all times, knowing how to manipulate a situation to favor my outcome. Like you said, always having a backup, and that's like the biggest one because you never really give yourself over to a relationship that way. Where if you're
Can't
always
invest.
thinking, you can't fully invest into a relationship. You can't fully invest into a person. You can't even fully invest into yourself. Furthermore, if you're always chasing different women,
It's true.
like you said, you have to play a different role for each person. I remember the days of Tinder, where each conversation it's like you have to be a different character because you don't know how people are going to respond.
That's crazy.
And it's true, man. It's we don't realize the damage that we're doing to ourselves. The damage that we're doing to ourselves by putting ourselves in these situations of going back and forth with different women. It's like, who are you?
And I think when you get to the who are you, and to your point, I think you want to expand on that, the whole double agent thing. When you get to a point where you can't be somewhere without your phone ringing and you not having, like, you're literally in a position where it's like, this could be anybody, this could be anything. I need to guard, like, there's literally so many steps involved before you even check a message. Before you even look at your phone, you got, back shoulder, make sure nobody's looking, I'm good here, like, and it's like, when you stop, it's like, that was no way to live, bro.
No.
I don't know.
And it's no way to live for you, but like for the other person, they never get all of you. And it also leads to the question of, did they ever really truly know you in the first place?
Yep.
And is that really the reason why things didn't work?
Yeah.
Did you ever actually present yourself in your authentic way to this person?
That's big.
Because you always had to put on, there's always something. And then, which begs an even deeper question of, how long have you been lying to yourself about who you are?
Holy smokes.
Because
It's true.
at the end of the day, that's what you've been doing. And when I realized there was a part of me that had been lying to myself about things, it was like, okay, so how do you feel about that? I had to ask myself, how do you feel about the fact that you've been lying to you? And it was like, why did I do that? Why did I get to a point where I was doing things and living out things that I knew weren't even me, just because I'm chasing a feeling or trying to fight against something? And then it really came down to the point where I realized it was about vulnerability. And being vulnerable to a man is like the worst thing in the world when we're younger. It's like being vulnerable, whether it's to your friend, and we're even more likely to be vulnerable to our friends than to our romantic partners. And when we can start to understand that vulnerability is okay, that's when you start to find real change. Because when you can really put yourself to that level, and you can,
Go ahead. I'm just gonna clear it.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
when we can get ourselves to a point, oh shit, I lost my train of thought.
Vulnerability.
Yes. When we talk about being vulnerable and how being vulnerable really comes across, it's like we think that it's weakness. We think that it's us not being able to, like somebody's gonna take advantage of us. You have to realize that vulnerability isn't that. Vulnerability is giving yourself in your purest form to somebody and allowing them to be able to deal with you in a way. Because, like, for example, we're vulnerable with our parents. That's usually people that we can be very vulnerable with. Because from a child, you don't lose that. You still call your parents by certain nicknames. Your parents can still call. Regardless, there's people who you can be vulnerable with, and because they've shown you, or you've shown them that this is something that you're worth me being vulnerable to you. And I think that we have to make it a little bit more regular to be vulnerable, because at the end of the day, it allows us to grow. And I think when you ask yourselves those questions about how honest you were with yourself, how honest you were with other people, it really opens the can of worms. And when I had to go to therapy to really get into it. You see what I'm saying? And when I got into it, I could start to open my eyes to it. And, you know, certain phone calls you have to make, you know, certain relationships you have to mend. And I think it brings everybody peace. And you also have to recognize, though, when some people don't want peace. Because there may be some people you've heard in the past, you coming back in to say whatever to give yourself peace is not peace for them.
Yeah.
And I think as men, we do make that mistake. Like, honestly, my friend, I don't want to hear from you. Do your thing. God has dealt with you. He's changed your heart. God bless you. But don't reach out to me. And you know what? As a man, if a woman has expressed that to you, leave it alone. Find your peace in yourself. If it's really about you, find your peace in yourself and leave them alone. Because that's something that I learned as well.
I thought about, you know, at that point, I thought about trust. Like, for me, it's like trust is everything. So I'll be, you know, 100% trust at the beginning. And then as I kind of set myself up to fail, whereas it's like, as we progress and you know what, that's a little bit shady, you know, maybe my trust in you goes down to a little, a little bit, and it's a little bit, until you get into this pattern of now, I can't trust you because I basically built a resume of everything you've done. And then now it's like, you give yourself permission to go into savage mode. This is really weird complex, where you give your permission to yourself to then say, well, you know, you've done this, because mentally, in my head, I have designed it that way, and then you go into that behavior, instead of trusting in your partner and being vocal towards them and saying, hey, I'm going to be a little bit, as you said, vulnerable with you. Mm-hmm. This XYZ, you know, shook my trust in you. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to get back to a better place. How can we progress? You know, how can we make this situation better where, you know, you've done something or that's offended me, or I've done something that's offended you. And I think there was someone gave me that advice. It's not so much the problem, but it's how are we going to deal with it and how are we going to get better. And I think that kind of those, you know, talks, I find for me, it's soothing to have those kind of talks in the morning, you know, when you wake up.
Yeah.
And you can, you know, just talk with your partner. And, you know, I find those things really affirm those bonds of trust. So, you know, that for me was the big thing that, you know, I'm still working through. But, you know, trust is always going to be my thing, and I'm always going to struggle with it. But it's always trying to seek to get back to a better place.
It's funny that you say that, seeking to get back to a better place.
Yo, sorry, time out. There's no way I can say this without having to cut it out. You got rice in your arm. So.
Oh, Lee, thank you. That's all right. Yeah, thank you. As you were saying, seeking to get back to a better place, I never realized something that I was chasing so much would have so much damage on my life. We put ourselves in these situations where, and we do it to our boys. We did it to our boys in high school, where we felt like being a man and being a player was such a big thing.
Alpha.
And not even an alpha, because you can be an alpha without being a player.
Yeah, 100%.
You didn't realize that being a player would have so much effect on your future. Would have so much effect on just the basics of developing a relationship, where we always have that thought of, is she gonna do me dirty? Can I trust her? My backups, you know what I mean? And to think back on it now, it's just like, not to say I regret it, but it was just like, I wish I could have given myself advice back then and just said something other than, don't follow your instincts, don't follow that path. I know it seems good. Yeah, I know it seems good.
But
I know she looks good. I know she looks good. I know she looks good. But trust me, it's not worth it, because then in the end, you want to have something that you can say, this is my home, this is my family.
100%.
And I think that one thing that a lot of men don't consider as we get older is the more women you've been through, the more experiences. And experience is good, but the more women you've been through and the more damage you may have done, the more bridges you may have burned. When you come to at some point be a family man, be a man with a wife, with a children, who has to, do certain things. These are things that are now going to reflect on your family, right? People are going to be, saying, oh, this and this about your wife, this and this about your children, because of things and mistakes that you made as a person, or your wife or your partner may not be able to go anywhere without being in front of the company of women that you had been with, right? And sometimes it's like, even if she's aware, right? It's one of those things where you have now, you've done something to her, and she may feel away every time she's in this scenario. And for you, you may feel away now when you're in this scenario, because it's like, I can't go anywhere without, and it's unfortunate, but it's also one of those things where we have to realize, and obviously this is for the younger men out there as well, that, that's something you have to think about back then. Because when you get to a certain age, it's not a good feeling going somewhere and it's like, oh, okay, I was with, X amount of women in this room, and my new partner is going to have to feel uncomfortable for the next 3 hours, right?
Yeah.
Stuff like that, it's not, and I wouldn't even say that was necessarily the life that I had lived, but I know a lot of, my friends and stuff who were in those scenarios, and when you get to a certain age, when you get to a certain point in life, that's not desirable, right? And a lot of women don't want that. They may want a man with experience and whatnot, but they don't want a man who everybody's been with, because it takes away from, a lot of things about what they may want from whatever exclusivity, whatever. So it's one of those things that you have to tread lightly, because you can go on a rampage as a teenager that'll pay huge costs as you get older, and as well. And the final thing I'll say is, when you're young and you don't know who you're dealing with, because we don't even know ourselves, so we end up in relationships with people who we don't know just as much, more than we don't know ourselves. And you get caught up and you make soul ties or lifetime ties, and it's like, are these even people that I want to be friends with forever? Are these people I want to be in a relationship with forever, right? So you got to be careful, because sometimes one relationship, one act, one thing can change your life forever, in a good or a bad way, right? So you got to make sure that you're making good decisions with the way that you handle people, because you never know how karma's a real thing. It's a very real thing.
Real. So let's keep on that and go around one last time and say, what was everybody's turning point? What was that thing or that action or that time or whatever that made you or each one of us say, you know what? Time to really turn it around.
Well, one of you guys go first. Fuck it, I'll go first. For me, I think I saw firsthand
The damage.
the damage. I saw firsthand the consequences of my actions, and I saw what it did to a female, and it hurt me to see that it hurt someone else like that, because like I said, my whole thing began with me being hurt, and then now I'm in turn hurting someone else, and then it got deeper from there, because then I thought, how many women have I done this to? And then from there I was just like, this is not what I wanted for myself. This is not how I would want to treat someone else as well. We're looking for love, not trying to damage and create hate, and but yeah, I just seeing that, man, my actions is breaking someone, and I don't know if that person is healed. I don't know, you know what I mean? And it's just like, how many people haven't healed after me? How many people are still going through it? I wonder what her life is like. I wonder if her life transpired. I wonder if her life went down, and it's just like, man, my actions may have fucked over a lot of people. My actions may have broken a lot of lives, and that was my turning point in realizing, like, you need to change. You need to change, not just for yourself, but for others around you, because now you're hurting other people around you, not just hurting yourself. And it wasn't easy, still going through it. still struggling. But yeah.
I mean, that's real. I say for me, it was, being honest, it was probably when my daughter got to a certain age, and I realized that she could ask me a question any day about my behavior, what I'm doing, where I am, what, like, anything, and like, we're old. She will eventually get to an age where she's old enough to have a real conversation with me, and I have to give her an honest answer. And she asked me about my behavior, what I've done, whoever, what I've been through. I have to be able to give her an honest answer and deal with the fact that whatever I say, you know, she's either gonna look at me this way or that way. And I think that's kind of when it was for me, where it was like, okay, there's just certain things that you can't do, because you realize that anybody could be that broken woman that I've broken, or that somebody else has broken. Anybody could be that, my sister, my mother, and it doesn't need to be somebody who's tied to me. The fact that it's any young woman out there who has to go through this, or any young man out there who has to go through this, it's not okay, and we shouldn't. I have to make sure that I'm not contributing to that problem. Especially because I realize that a lot of young people, or people in general, like a thing in society, you know, mental health is a big thing, and when some people can be put through things to an extent where their mental health is taken out to a certain point, and they do obviously certain irrational things, and I've seen how people around me have maybe committed or done certain things, and if it's affected other people's mental health to a great degree. And for me, it was kind of like, you know what, you just gotta throw it out. You know what I mean? And you just gotta say, you know what, I'd rather take myself out of a situation than put anybody through that, and that's really just how you gotta deal with it. And that's what I'd say it was for me.
I think for me was just really one day when I was going through it, and you know, I wasn't really proud of my actions, I wasn't really happy, and then thinking to myself, you deserve peace, and you deserve to love yourself a little more than what you're putting forward. That really affected how I thought about what I was doing, how I thought about, you know, the energy that I'm putting in the world. You know, I'm big on energy, and the energy I'm putting out in the world isn't positive. And then I started to, you know, think about my role as in the community and as a teacher. And, you know, I'm telling students, you know, we gotta do better, you know, especially, you know, black students, I'm telling them, we gotta do better, we gotta do this, we gotta do that. But it's like, am I aligned in my personal life? I'm telling people to do that, you know, in my public life, but personal life, I'm not aligned like that. So for me, it came where I needed to really amalgamate those things and align myself so I can move forward and be able to say, hey guys, you know, the black family is really important. Or guys, you know, being black isn't all these things. You can be black and have a successful family. You can be black and live whatever way you want to live, but as long as you're not destroying your own community. And I think infidelity, adultery, all those things are toxic, and they destroy the community. And you destroy people along the way. And to have really contributed to that, really, you know, it deeply upset me and made me feel like you got to fix yourself. Okay, you don't want to go out there and be a hypocrite or be saying things for clout or saying things because it sounds good. You got to live it. And if I'm going to be someone that's living it and being pro-black or for black, then I have to do these certain things. So it became a thing where I needed to learn to prioritize giving myself to one person. Giving myself, not trying to split, you know, fraction off myself to everybody, because there's no progress in that. There's no advancement. Being with one person and trusting yourself enough to give them your all, because if it doesn't work out, hey, it doesn't work out. And as I said before, you know, I think I'm a handsome guy. I think I can, you know, do well for myself, but I think, you know, you can't use that to destroy other people. So
100%. You gotta walk the walk and talk the talk.
Walk the walk, talk the talk.
I like it. I'd say mine, straight up, woman I hurt after the whole emotional roller coaster. At the end of it, we just sat down and she had a heart to heart with me. all emotions aside and just explain to me what my actions did and how my actions describe the person that I'm not. And honestly, I respected it because she told me, she's like, you are so much better than this. And she's like, and if you want to continue to grow and progress in life, you can't keep being this person. And I respected it because it was like tumultuous at one point. Like the fact that we could sit down and have a conversation heart to heart, I really appreciate that because she could have just dug into me, but she just really broke down the fact of like, if this is where you want to go and this is what I know you want to do based on being with you, you got to cut this shit out. And I think that was so impactful for me because I'm like, even after everything we've been through, you still care about me enough to really see me progress, you know what I mean? So that's where I kind of had to take a seat back and just be like lust, love, emotion, all of that stuff. But when someone really like cares about you, they're gonna want to see you progress, even with or without them. And the fact that she broke that down for me, I really appreciate it. That was a lesson that I at no point in time did I ever get. So, yeah, man.
Man. This conversation is deep, yeah. Deep. Serious
I
conversation.
feel like it's just, there's a lot of layers.
There is.
I mean, because I'm even thinking about different points in life in general. Like, why was it all the same reason why you were doing what you were doing, or was it different reasons at different points in your life? Yeah, man, it hits deep thinking through all those layers.
Trust me, I battle with those thoughts a lot. Or sometimes I'm like, like, after all the dirt I did, like, do I deserve happiness? And for a long time, like, I really struggled with that.
I think everybody does, but to a good point you made, Mark, is the energy you put out there. And I'm someone who'll tell you like
we said energy, but we just spoke about karma too.
Yeah,
And
it'll catch up with you.
But that's the thing.
It
The
catches
thing
up.
is, my take on that is, you're gonna pay for
Some.
You're gonna pay for your sins regardless. In some way, shape, or form, you're gonna pay for them. But how long you pay for them is dependent on your actions going forward.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, it's gonna come back to you a certain way. But eventually, when you start to put better energy out there,
But that's the whole point. Like, all right, you put your energy out there, you change your life. You're
It's
good.
not happening
still
in one
gonna
day.
get-
It's
no,
not
it's
one
still
day.
gonna-
I know. Turn it around. You're all good. You're feeling nice, and then
but the thing is though, that's a part of, to my earlier point about sitting in or hugging your L, that's a part of it. I've moved on, I've changed, but karma doesn't have an expiry.
Yeah.
So when it does come for me, I need to handle this in the best way possible. And remember, resorting back to that is only gonna ruin all the progress.
most definitely.
I have to take this, I have to learn from it, I have to, even though, man,
I'm not saying resorting back. I'm just saying after all of that, like,
you have to be prepared.
no.
That's part of karma.
I'm just saying, like, after all of that, I've turned my page. I've turned the corner. I've seen my wicked ways. But do I deserve happiness?
I think, yeah, you do deserve I think, like Kyle said, everybody deserves it. But how long will you pay for your sins in the process is the question. But I think that I personally, I'm a person that think that's fair. Like I've come to, like, in a very micro example, like I've come to an age where now, like, I realize that I deserved a lot of the beatings that I got still, to be honest. Some of them, yeah, maybe out of order. But like a lot of them, like I looked at some of the things that I was doing and I deserve
I
this.
feel like a lot of us has skated by a lot of meetings.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you have to understand that, you know what? In whatever way this comes to me, I gotta hug it. I gotta maneuver it. But like you said, still continue to progress through.
I think I've lived it before where it's like, I did the dirt, and then it's like, instead of it happening to me, I'm watching it happen to those around me.
Yep.
And I'm like, my family's all with me. So I'm looking around and I'm like, damn, like, I'm seeing this, I'm seeing what its cause is, everything that goes with it, and how, watching the women around me being broken for days. And I'm like, okay, like, and
next?
but it's like, and then it's like me going and saying, you know what, this is how we're gonna go through this. I felt like, man, that was a weight on my back, like, and it was like, yeah, you're living your karma right now.
Yeah.
Like
It's not always gonna be you.
It's not, and it could be, and then I thought about it, like, man, you have a daughter, like, that could happen to your daughter. you know, what kind of man would you want your daughter to bring home? Would it be someone like you? And I'm like, no.
That's some triggering shit.
Okay, so can I ask you a question as we wrap it up? Is there a way to wild out and have fun responsibly then?
No, listen.
Be single.
No. To be honest, I think to be honest, me personally, I can say that during my time of savagery, I led women on.
Okay.
I made them believe that, you know what, I was going to settle down with them and this is a relationship, and really I was, just. And so to your point, sorry, what was your point?
So is there a way to have fun responsibly?
Yes, I think as long as you have that conversation with that person.
Let's put communication up there.
Communication.
Okay. For the young boy.
I think just
let's put it on the board for them.
Communication is number one.
telling someone, yo, I'm not in a relationship. I'm not looking for a relationship. I know it sucks, and I'm just here for a good time. I just,
All right. Honestly,
get my rocks off.
Honesty
Although we should not
communication.
be like that. You should
No,
not
but
want
the
to.
thing is,
You should not want to just get your rocks off.
No, but the thing is, if a person
Probably not going to use this.
but
But there are women out there who want the same
exactly.
thing.
So that's the thing. Being honest will find you to that person. Don't lie to the woman who doesn't want that to get that.
Yeah.
Find the one who does want it. You guys are on the same page. Boom. That's how you connect. So one, honestly, find women who actually want what you want. That's first and foremost. Stop trying to take a woman who wants this and make her want what you want. Get a woman who wants what you want, because that's one easy way to cut the manipulation or whatever that out the gate. I think you can definitely have fun. You can definitely, live life and do whatever, but also make sure you're finding women that you actually like. Because if you actually like her, you'll want to do things, you'll want to, grow, whatever. Because sometimes men are not getting with women that they actually like. They're getting with women maybe because it's just because of the physical aspect, or even just because like status. So it's like, oh, man, we're gonna think I'm, because I.
And you get a woman everybody likes.
Exactly.
What you like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's silly. So I think that is another way to kind of to deal with that.
Yeah.
All right. Is it about, you asked about fun? Can you have fun?
Yeah, you said being single.
I mean,
Be single.
not. I feel like nowadays, no. I feel like it's very difficult to have that because you're gonna be looked at as a certain way. You're gonna be known as a fun time guy. I don't want to be known as a fun time guy. So I mean, you gotta be honest with yourself. It goes back to Rob's point. You gotta know what you want. If you want to be, for example, me coming to terms with knowing like, I want monogamy. I want to be exclusive with one person.
Not trying to be a fun girl, eh?
I don't need. If that's what you want, so be it. But you have to be willing to accept the consequences that come with that.
I'm trying to be a fun girl, eh?
You know what I'm saying? I think most people want to be loved at some point.
Yeah.
But if that's what you want to be, then accept it. But after a while, it might stop being fun.
Yes.
And you have to understand that. So
It gets lonely.
the streets get lonely.
It's cold out there.
It's cold out there. It's cold out there. Jesus. Anyways, madam, thank you.
Thank you.
It's been another edition of Conversations Over Dinner. Your boy Jamal Kyle.
Rob.
Till next time. That's it. Done now.